animals. Like which one? A lamb? A dove? Yes. And what will happen to this sacrifice? The sacrifice was supposed to be killed. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. The sacrifice would come, and where was it supposed to be killed? On the altar. So if during the Old Testament, people will take an animal and then they will walk the animal living, and then the animal will be put on the altar and it will be killed on the altar. So at the end of the day, what was the sacrifice? Living or dead? At the end of the day, was the sacrifice living or dead? The sacrifice was dead. It was on the altar living, but it died. Then when it died, it remained on the altar. Now Paul is saying, now we are doing a comparison. The sacrifice in the Old Testament and the sacrifice in the New Testament. So we are saying, in the Old Testament, people will sacrifice, number one, animals, and the animals will walk on the altar, living, but then they will be killed, and the sacrifices will be left on the altar. But now, Paul is saying, present your bodies as living sacrifices. So what are these living sacrifices? That is what we need to learn. That in the New Testament, the sacrifice was done by who? Jesus Christ, isn't it? Christ already took, when Christ died on the cross, we no longer come with animals on the altar. When Christ died, we are no longer required to come with a goat or a sheep to offer a sacrifice on the altar. What we in the New Testament and the Old Testament, while the Old Testament, the sacrifice, in the New Testament, we are supposed to die to the flesh. We are supposed to die to the flesh and then now present a living sacrifice. The opposite. While in the Old Testament, the animal will be alive, sin, dead to fleshly desires. And the one that Paul is saying, living sacrifice. Living sacrifice, not dead. Another difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, the sacrifices that were killed on the altar remained there because they were dead. But you see, as a living person, there are so many things that happen to a living person. To a living person, we change. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. A living person has so many challenges. So we are supposed to keep dying to our fleshly desires. And so if we are supposed to present ourselves as living sacrifices, it means we have to daily die to sin. The Bible says, Paul writes and says, for all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And daily we must die. Daily. That is what Paul is saying. That a living sacrifice. For us to be alive, we must be daily committed to die to self. Daily. It is not a one thing. Like in the Old Testament, it used to be a seasonal thing. Ilikuwa inafanyika seasonally, once in a while. But for us as Christians, we have to die daily to self. We have to die daily to sin. Because every day is a new day. And when the Bible talks about the mercies of God are new every morning, God understands as we are tempted, we of surrender. Bwana asifiwe. Presenting your bodies means an intentional, decisive, continuous act of surrender. Bwana asifiwe. Because we are made of flesh. Bwana asifiwe. As human beings, we are made of flesh. And flesh has its own desires. Your flesh will always want to do things contrary to what God desires. And it's the same Paul who says, what sometimes I desire to do, I don't do. Sometimes I get myself in things that I'm supposed not to do. Bwana asifiwe. That yes, I'm born again, but there are things that sometimes you do that are not pleasing in the eyes of God. Because our first parents sinned, we are born in sin. And so when Paul is saying, present yourself, present your bodies, it should be intentional. It should be a choice you're making every day. If you are to live for God, you don't just say, I am living for God in this year. You don't just say, I'm living for God in this season. You have to be intentional about the decisions you make, about the surrendering to God daily, so that we kill the fleshly desires. Body represents the whole person, not part of you.